The birth in Media, the sun had barely risen over the dusty hills of Media when a shriek shattered the stillness of the morning. Inside a small mud and thatch hut at the edge of the village, Nafula gripped the woven mat beneath her body contorting with pain as the midwife whispered calm words into her ear. The room smelled of burnt herbs, sweat, and the thick tension of expectancy. "Push, Nafula. One last time," urged Mama Chiku, the village's trusted midwife, her wrinkled hands firm and steady. Nafula screamed, tears streaming down her face. Then, suddenly, there was silence, a sharp, eerie stillness that sent goosebumps crawling over Mama Chiku's arms. And then the baby cried out a loud, sharp wail that sounded more like a command than a plea. Mama Chiku caught the child, her heart pounding with relief. But as she cleaned the newborn's face, her breath caught. Her fingers trembled. There, nestled under the baby's delicate nose, was a thick, unmistakable mustache, smooth, black, and neatly shaped, like it had been groomed by an invisible hand. She gasped. Nafula, barely conscious, blinked through her tears. "Is it a girl?" Mama Chiku nodded slowly, wrapping the baby in a kai-tinged cloth. "Yes, a girl. But there's something else." She hesitated. Could she say it? Could she dare? "She has a mustache." Nafula sat up suddenly, ignoring her pain. "What?" When she saw the child, her hand flew to her mouth. Her baby, soft and beautiful, had the face of a child and the mustache of a grown man. Nafula screamed, fainted, and collapsed back on the mat. Outside the hut, women who had been waiting to hear the good news rushed to the door. "What's going on?" Mama Chiku stepped out slowly, holding the child in her arms like a sacred offering. Her voice was hoarse. "The baby is healthy, but she has a mustache, a thick one." Gasps, murmurs, cries of shock. Is it a demon child? No, she is blessed. This is an omen. By midday, the whole village had heard the news. Children peeked through the bushes, hoping to see the mysterious baby. The elders gathered beneath the ancient baobab tree, debating furiously. Chief Aluo, an aging but respected leader with a limp and a slow tongue, sat on a carved wooden stool, his brows furrowed. "Bring the baby," he said finally. "We must see with our own eyes." When Mama Chiku brought the infant to him, there was silence. The chief peered closely, then drew back with awe. The mustache was not only real, it shimmered slightly in the light, almost regal in its bearing. A murmur passed through the council. "What shall we name her?" asked one of the elders. "Mokira," said Mama Chiku. "The strange one." Chief Aluo grunted. "Strange, yes, but perhaps powerful." But not everyone agreed. Some women began whispering about Nafula's ancestors. Others accused her of consorting with evil spirits. A few feared that the child's presence would bring misfortune to the entire village. And indeed, that week, strange things began happening. A cow refused to give milk. The river dried earlier than usual. A child woke up screaming, saying she'd seen a baby with a man's face chasing her in her dreams. Mokira was not even a week old, and already, the village was beginning to divide. As Mokira grew, so did the stories about her. At 1 month, she held her head up and watched people with unnerving focus. By 3 months, she had started humming tunes no one had taught her. And by 1 year, she could walk without stumbling, her mustache fuller than ever, now curling slightly at the tips like the ancient portraits of warrior kings that hung in the chief's hut. People started avoiding Nafula in the market. The blacksmith refused to make her new cooking pots. Some women swore they saw a lion bow before the child as she toddled through the fields. "She's cursed," hissed Mama Atu, a devout woman who led the village's spiritual prayers. "She's chosen," argued old Guka, a former hunter-turned-recluse. "Her mustache is a mark of the ancestors." Nafula, heartbroken and confused, stopped attending gatherings. But at night, she would watch her daughter play with the moonlight through the window, her mustache casting a small shadow on the wall, and wonder, "Why you, my child? What are you meant to be?" One afternoon, a delegation arrived from the neighboring village of Iburo. They had heard rumors of a girl with a warrior's face. The leader, an elder named Jabari, requested to see the child. When he saw Mokira, now 3 years old, sitting in silence with a reed in her mouth and eyes like polished coal, he fell to his knees. "She is the one," he whispered. "The mark is true." "What mark?" Chief Ayuo asked cautiously. "There was once a queen," Jabari said, "many generations ago, who ruled not with weapons but with wisdom. She had a mustache just like this child. When she died, she swore to return when the land was again divided by pride and greed. The mustache is the sign." Gasps filled the air, but Mama Atu hissed in disapproval. "These are heathen tales. This is a trick of Satan." The villagers began shouting. Some supported Jabari, others condemned his words. Nafula held her daughter tightly that night. "You're just a child," she whispered, "but they will tear each other apart because of you." And in the distance, thunder rumbled. A storm was coming, not of rain, but of men's hearts. Whispers and wonders. By the time Mokira turned 6, her name had become a chant in the mouths of children and a curse on the lips of fearful elders. Her mustache had thickened, curling naturally like that of a nobleman, and not a single strand grew elsewhere on her face. Her presence carried weight. People stood straighter in her company, spoke more carefully. Some even lowered their gaze, unsure whether they were addressing a child or something beyond human. Her mother, Nafula, tried to shelter her from the spreading superstition, but Mokira herself had begun to notice the strange way people reacted around her. Women tugged their children away from her path in the market. Old men crossed themselves in prayer. Even dogs, once playful around her, now kept their distance, ears lowered in submission. Only the animals of the forest seemed unafraid. Mokira would often wander beyond the fields into the quiet woods, where birds landed on her shoulders and antelopes approached without fear. She spoke to them in whispers, and some villagers swore they had seen her having full conversations with monkeys and wild dogs. Once, a leopard was spotted watching her from a tree branch, blinking slowly like it were greeting a fellow predator, then vanishing into the undergrowth without harm. "She's a daughter of the wild," muttered old Guka one evening at the village square. "Lord of the moon and crowned with fur. Mark my words, she holds power." Others didn't take kindly to such talk. Mama Atu, ever vigilant, accused Guka of spreading heresy. "This girl has brought only trouble," she said, pointing an accusing finger toward Nafula's compound. "Since her birth, rains have grown scarce, marriages have broken, and our livestock no longer give like they used to. The gods are punishing us for allowing such a child to live among us." But just as many rose in Mokira's defense. "She's no curse," said old Jabari of Iburo, who now stayed regularly in Media, watching over the girl with deep reverence. "She is the answer. Look at the signs. The birds follow her. Dreams bend around her. When she sings, the wind listens." And indeed, strange things had begun happening. Elder Kwame, once paralyzed after a hunting injury, claimed he dreamed of Mokira placing her palm on his leg. The next morning, he stood unaided and walked to the river. A child who had been mute since birth suddenly began speaking after Mokira spent an afternoon sitting near her. A drought-threatened field, where Mokira had once played among the maize stalks, produced an unexpected harvest even though others had withered. Such incidents lit the village aflame with rumors. Fireside tales evolved rapidly. Some claimed she was the reborn queen of the forgotten dynasty. Others whispered she was a spirit trapped in a child's body. No one seemed to know for certain, least of all Mokira herself. Nafula tried to keep her daughter's life simple. But Mokira had grown into a thoughtful, silent child, too observant for her age, too calm to be called ordinary. She never played with other children. Instead, she spent her time drawing in the sand, studying birds, or sitting beneath the baobab tree where the village elders once met. One day, the chief's wife, Mama Zawadi, visited Nafula secretly. "I need your daughter," she said softly. Her eyes filled with desperation. "My womb is closed. I've tried every root, every healer, and nothing. But last night I dreamt she stood over me and placed her hand on my stomach. In the dream, I wept, and she said, 'Your tears will bloom into a sun. Please, let her come.'" Nafula hesitated, but eventually allowed Mokira to go. She had stopped trying to understand her daughter. Now, she simply moved with the flow of fate. Mokira walked into the chief's home, looked into Mama Zawadi's eyes, and touched her belly. She said nothing. 3 months later, Mama Zawadi discovered she was pregnant. But not all were pleased with Mokira's rising reverence. Mama Atu began gathering followers of her own, men and women who feared the village was falling into spiritual decay. She accused the chief of allowing blasphemy to flourish. "This child," she shouted during a heated gathering, "is not from God. She is trickery wrapped in innocence. She is leading us into darkness." The chief, reluctant to create conflict, tried to calm both sides. But the tension had grown beyond simple diplomacy. People now carried their beliefs like weapons. The village was splitting. The rift of Media morning dawned after the storm, washing Media in a silver haze of rain-kissed dust and rising mist. But beneath the calm sky, the heart of the village pulsed with tension. The people were no longer one. They had split like a cracked gourd, one half clinging to fear, the other to faith. Mokira, now 10, had grown taller, her mustache even more defined. It framed her face like a bold signature written by the gods. She walked with a presence far beyond her years, neither loud nor demanding, yet wherever she stepped, people paused. Inside her mother's compound, silence had become normal. Nafula had stopped trying to convince others of her daughter's humanity. She only watched, often with a gaze both proud and frightened. "I gave birth to her," she whispered once to Jabari of a bureau, "but I no longer understand who she is, or what she is." Jabari had merely nodded. "Children born with signs are not always meant for the home, Nafula. Some belong to destiny itself." The rift in the village grew more visible. The keepers held prayer circles every seventh day under the baobab tree. They wore necklaces made of black feathers, said to represent the bird that had followed Mokira since birth. Their prayers were songs, their offerings were humble, wild honey, cower shells, and river water. They began crafting tales. "She is Nyabok reborn," they'd say. "She will bring rain and drought, light and darkness. Her mustache is not a curse, it is her crown." Meanwhile, the cleansers grew more militant. Their gatherings took place in secret huts at the forest edge. Mama Atu, now calling herself the seer of purity, stood as their leader. She spoke in harsh tones, her voice sharpened by anger. "This child bends nature. She commands animals. She silences storms. No mortal should hold such power." Some believed her. Others simply feared her more than they did Mokira. Soon, signs of conflict began surfacing. One night, the shrine built by the keepers was burned. Charred feathers lay scattered around the river. In retaliation, a compound belonging to a prominent cleanser was found overturned, livestock missing, yam stores destroyed. The village elders, long silent, finally gathered. Chief Barisa stood in the center of the council ring, his once proud beard now peppered with gray. "This division will end in blood," he said gravely. "We must speak to the girl, understand what she is." But the idea was met with hesitation. How does one question a child who speaks to lightning? one elder muttered. Is she still a child? Another whispered. In the end, the decision was made. A formal gathering would be held in the village square. Mokira would be invited, not judged, not accused, but asked to speak. To explain, the message was sent to Nafula. She must attend, the messenger said. Tomorrow at midday. Nafula looked at her daughter, who sat silently weaving strands of dry grass. Do you understand, Mokira? Mokira looked up, her eyes deep like ancient wells. Yes, Mama. I've been waiting for this. The day arrived with an eerie stillness. The entire village gathered in the square, keepers to the left, cleansers to the right. In the middle, the elders sat on carved stools. No drums played. No songs were sung. Even the birds seemed to hush. Mokira arrived barefoot, wearing a simple red dress. Her mustache shimmered in the sun. She walked with quiet confidence and stood before the elders. Chief Baresa was the first to speak. Mokira, daughter of Nafula, you have lived in our village for 10 years. You have brought wonder and fear in equal measure. Today, we ask only one thing. Who are you? Silence followed. The villagers leaned in. Nafula held her breath. Mokira spoke. I am Mokira, she said softly. I was born here. I drank from your rivers and walked on your earth. But I am more than what you see. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I do not know why the sky listens when I cry, or why animals follow me. But I feel the pain in your hearts. I hear the fear in your sleep. She turned slowly to face each side. You fear me because I am different. But I did not choose the mustache. I did not ask for the birds to follow or the rain to come. I only want peace. She looked directly at Mama Atu. I do not wish to be worshipped, and I do not wish to be feared. I only wish to be allowed to exist as I am. There was stillness. Then came movement. From the cleanser's side, Mama Atu rose. She walked forward with fire in her eyes. You speak like a priestess, she said. You charm like a spirit. You say you wish peace, but your very presence causes division. How do we know you are not sent to undo us? Mokira looked at her with calm. You don't. But if you harm me, and the earth cries, what then? If you exile me and the skies dry, who will you blame? The question landed heavy. The chief raised his hand. Enough. He stood and looked at the villagers. You all have heard her. A child who speaks with more wisdom than most of us. The time for fear must end. But Mama Atu was not finished. If the child will not leave, she said, raising her staff, then perhaps the gods must decide. She turned and poured red dust into a wooden bowl. This is sacred ash from the firestone, she declared. We will perform the test. If she survives, we accept her. If not, then the gods have spoken. Gasps spread across the crowd. The firestone test was ancient, forbidden. No one had used it in a generation. Nafula cried out, no, she's just a girl. But Mokira stepped forward. I will do it, she said. That night, under moonlight, the firestone was prepared. It was a simple test in appearance, a coal from the sacred tree placed in the bowl. The person under judgment must touch the coal. If it burned them, they were not of spirit. If it did not, they were marked. As the villagers gathered again, a strange stillness fell over Media. Even the wind stopped. Mokira stood before the bowl. The coal glowed red. She extended her hand. Whispers turned into held breaths. Her fingers touched the coal. She held it 0.1 second. 2. 5. No scream. No burn. She placed it gently back into the bowl. Her hand was untouched. Mama Atu stepped back, pale. Her staff dropped to the earth. Mokira looked to the sky. Thunder cracked, but no rain fell. Only light, pure light. The prophecy revealed the morning after the Firestone trial. Media awoke in a state of quiet reverence. The girl no one could understand had held the sacred coal, untouched by flame, unshaken by fear. The elders whispered that the gods had spoken, but what they said remained open to interpretation. Some saw her as a divine messenger. Others still trembled at what her presence might bring. But one thing was clear: Mokira was no longer just a village girl. She was something else entirely. The keepers celebrated at dawn. They danced barefoot in the dew-laced grass, circled the baobab tree, and poured libations into the soil. "It is written in the scrolls of the silent prophets," one said. "A child shall rise with the face of contradiction. She shall look like man and woman. She shall carry the sky in her heart." But the cleansers were silent. Their fire had dimmed. Even Mama Atu had withdrawn, refusing to speak. Nafula, too, was changed. She no longer moved like a mother protecting her child, but like a servant in awe of a mystery she could not claim. 1 week later, Mokira disappeared. She rose early, left the compound barefoot, and vanished into the forest. Nafula cried for days. The villagers searched, combed the riverside, climbed the hills, questioned every hunter and gatherer. Nothing. No footprints. No bird calls. No torn cloth. The girl with the mustache was gone. 10 years passed. The village of Media changed in her absence. Rainfall came on time. Harvests improved. The river that had once dried up every August flowed longer, stronger. Children were born with brighter eyes. Dreams became more vivid. The keepers remained, their followers increasing. Their small shrine grew into a circular temple woven from palm reeds and river stone. They did not worship Mokira, but they told stories of her, how she calmed storms, how the fire could not harm her, how she disappeared without a trace. The cleansers faded. Some moved away. Others turned to farming, humbled by silence. Nafula grew older, her hair now a silver crown. But her eyes never lost hope. Every evening, she sat outside her compound and watched the path to the forest. "She'll return," she whispered, "when we need her most." One night, thunder rolled over Media, but there were no clouds. The ground trembled softly. Chickens clucked in fear. Dogs howled without cause. Then came the dream. Every child in the village had it. A forest glowing with light. A girl standing beneath a twisted tree, her mustache brighter than silver, her hand raised high. Then darkness. The next morning, all the children woke with a single word on their lips: Rudo. No one knew what it meant. The elders called an emergency gathering. They brought out the old scrolls, some written in charcoal on animal skin, some etched in stone. Chief Barisa, now frail and blind in one eye, sat with the sacred seer of the hills. The seer read with trembling fingers. "When the girl of paradox returns, she will name the one who threatens the land. Her word will bind the earth and sky. Her mustache, once mocked, will become the banner of truth." Gasps. Silence. Wonder. The chief turned to the people. "Prepare. She is coming." 3 days later, Mokira returned, not walking, floating. She came not from the forest, but from the mountain. Her feet did not touch the soil. Her eyes were white, her hair longer, woven with feathers and vines. But the mustache, it was unchanged. Proud. Black.